Are we live here? I wasn't sure if I was sounded so
I can hear
far.
you.
You're live. I'm hearing you. Jerry, Bob, Carol, and Chris, apparently. And Polly. I'm still not seeing Chris or Carol. But I will text and see. Here's Chris. Okay. So it's a little after 6. We'll have to get started. Hopefully Carol will join. But I haven't heard from her and I don't see her, but we do have a quorum, or this appears to. So I'm going to get started. Alicia, are we recording?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
Okay. Thank you. So this is the Hideout Utah Town Council meeting and public hearing of April 8th, 2021. This meeting will be an electronic meeting with no anchor site. And I will read the no anchor site letter for the record. Mayor of the town of Hideout hereby determines that conducting a meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk. Sorry, I'll start over in a second. So Carol says she can't get on. Could somebody resend her the link while I'm going through this part? Thank you. Mayor of the town of Hideout determines that conducting a meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location pursuant to Utah Code Section 52-4-207 sub 4 and Hideout Town Ordinance 2020-03. The facts upon which the determination is based include the percent number of positive COVID-19 cases in Utah has been over 7% since April 1st. The 7-day average cases has been over 400 since April 6th. So the meeting will not have a physical anchor location. All participants will connect remotely. All public meetings are available on the Utah live stream or there's Carol trying to get in now, or through the Zoom link that's also shown here. Comments may also be emailed to hideoututah@hideoututah.gov, and comments received prior to the meeting would be read into the public comment portion. Okay. So we've established that this is an electronic meeting with no anchor location. I'm now going to do the roll call. Again, this is Hideout Town Council of April 8th, 2021. And Bob, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Chris,
Here.
I need a. Carol, I think you're on now.
I am. I'm here.
Thank you. Jerry?
Here.
Thank you. And Ralph?
Here.
Okay, we have the full council available and present. Thank you, guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen. The next item on the agenda is the approval of council minutes of November 12th, 2020 and February 11th, 2021. I have reviewed them, albeit not in super detail, but when I reviewed, they look good to me. They seem to capture everything that was the content of those sessions. I'll open to the council to see if any of you have any comments on them.
I've also reviewed both and have no additions or corrections.
I've reviewed them. No comments. They look great.
Looks good to me too.
Same here.
Same for me.
All right, then. Well done, Alicia. Appreciate that. And we're getting pretty close to being caught up, I think. Can't have any more. So I will need a motion to approve the minutes of November 12th, 2020 and February 11th, 2021.
I so
Also
move.
Thank you, Carol.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Bob. Chris,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and Carol,
Me.
sorry. Yeah,
Yes.
Carol. Okay. Minutes are approved. Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is public input. Before we get into public input, I would like to state that we are aware of that there has been a communication from the HOA regarding the potential purchase of the golf course. We have engaged our legal counsel from a municipal standpoint to ascertain whether or not the town has a position from a municipal standpoint in this potential sale. So at the moment, we recognize that I've gotten a lot of emails. People want to know what's going on, and we don't know a lot because we found out just like you did. We have no advance notice, those of you that are on here to talk about that. And at this point, we don't know what the municipality's position, if any, would be in this potential transfer. This may be purely a non-municipal issue, depending on what the legal folks tell us. We expect to know more in the next week or so. And once we know that, we will communicate if there is either way, we'll communicate that there is or is not a position that the municipality can take regarding this transaction. With that, we can go to public comment. Again, we're not going to be able to answer any questions on it, guys, because we don't know yet anything any more than you do, other than what we've read. But in the meantime, we will open the floor for public comment. The way you do that is at the bottom of your screen. In the Zoom session, you should be able to there's a raise hand button. You should be able to raise your hand, and I'll watch the list for raised hands, and then we'll let you into the meeting to make your comments.
Also, if I can add *9, if you're on the telephone, will raise your hand.
Thank you. I do see one hand up. I don't know who that is. Kurt, let me unmute you. I think you're unmuted, Kurt.
Okay,
You're available. There you go.
thanks,
Yeah.
Mayor. So I completely understand what you're saying as it relates to the municipal position on the golf course. It just appears to me totally uneconomically sound from a homeowner / HOA member perspective for this golf course to be sold to the HOA. And I would urge the council and the mayor, regardless of whether this is a municipal issue, if nothing else, as private citizens, private HOA members, that I think it important that we get as many people as we can together to express our displeasure and to urge people to vote no on this. If for no other reason, then there's not enough information provided to HOA members to come up with an educated vote on this matter. So I completely get your point, Phil, but I would urge you and other like-minded people, if not as public officials, but as people who have respect in the community, to organize a public response and a effort to try to get this defeated.
Kurt, I agree completely. It's why we're looking into it to try and figure out what we can do and what advice or guidance we can give to community members on how to obtain the information or ask the right questions that they need to ask. So that's part of what we're working on now, is trying to figure out how can we help people make an informed decision. But I agree completely. It's pretty vague. Mr. Schiff.
Thank you. I just want to speak to this a little bit too, because I think there are terms that I will ask the city to clarify. Specifically, it states that the property is zoned RSF single family. And I don't quite understand how a golf course could have been created and on land that was zoned that way, and whether that gives the city any jurisdiction over the, because it has a different use, whether the city has any jurisdiction to maintain the use as open space or recreational property. Thank you.
Mr. Schiff, that took me by surprise as well. The zoning for the initial golf course and the initial properties was done well before this administration. That's part of what we're researching as well, as to understand. I believe it's in the R spa from the prior designations for zoning that we had, but we have to determine what that means. They are not automatically entitled to build. Anyone who wants to build anywhere in Hideout has to go through the municipal process. So it's not like they can just start putting up homes.
Right. And whether or not the land could be rezoned in a manner that is more consistent with the expectations of the town. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. I'm still having no hands at the moment. So I will close general public input and we'll move into the topics, the next topics for the meeting, which are public hearing topics, where we're going to review final subdivision plats for Deerwater's Phase 3 and Phase 4. Thomas is on the phone, the planner, and these have been through Planning Commission, and we have a report in the package tonight from Thomas. And so I'll turn it over to Thomas. I'm going to close public input, make that clear, and then we're going to turn it over to Thomas to take us through the comments and the input from the Planning Commission and his input, as well as the engineer's input on phases 3 and 4.
Thanks, Mayor. This, as you noted, did go back to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission had reviewed this. It was more than a year ago, actually, and the subdivision that you have in front of you is basically the same subdivision that was approved by the Planning Commission. There, a year had transpired, and therefore, according to the ordinance, it has to come back for approval by the Planning Commission and the Town Council. So the Planning Commission did review it and made a favorable recommendation. And so it's before you tonight. Just for clarification, this is for Phase 3 and 4. Each phase is 22 units. There's a location map in the report if any of you need to identify that. It's kind of the southeastern.
Should be on your screen, I think.
Yep, there it is. It's on the southeastern quadrant of the Deerwater subdivision, which is a Deerwaters 1, 2, and 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are the two that are under consideration tonight. The total is 102 units. Again, these two phases are 22 units each.
Thomas, so
Yes.
I know there was some shuffling in the total approved number. Can you walk us through where we are on that?
Yes, and I think Nate Brockbank is here as well, and he can chime in as well. About maybe 6 or so months ago, Nate was working with the town and eliminated some of the density from this proposed Phase 3 and 4. And Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you eliminated, was it 11 or 15 units?
It was Well, 10 units. We
10,
reduced it from
sorry.
112, which we have the MDA for, down to 102.
Okay,
And Nate, you moved one of those pods into phase 2. Is that correct as well?
Well, in between phase 2 and Lakeview Estates.
Yeah.
So it's half on Lakeview and half on Deer Waters phase 1, actually. And if you could, well, go ahead, Thomas, I'll wait.
no, go ahead, Nate.
I was just gonna say, if we had a plat, we could kind of show you. So to be completely upfront, we worked with Kurt Shadle, and he said this in the planning commission meeting. But so what we did is we reduced the density, and then we, instead of just having like we do, and in some of the other subdivisions, we went from a single story to a 2-story to a single story to 2-story, and so it doesn't look. You know how sometimes when you look across the lake, it looks like kind of, no, it just doesn't look. It kind of looks like it looks out of place, actually. And so Kurt had this idea that actually was really good to offset the houses a little bit and to not just have the exact same house on the road. And I don't know if you have those, the Mylars, you should. It was in my packet that I turned in. But and so that's one thing we did. And then we, like I say, we reduced the density just so it looks a little bit better from, distances and when you're driving on the street.
And Nate, I'll also ask, this subdivision was approved some time ago, and that was before the town moved to 26-foot road widths. What width of road are you planning to do here, and could you do a 26 asphalt plus curb and gutter?
So I think on the top road right now in Deer Waters phase 3, it is 26, and that road is in. According to my MDA, that's the shoreline road. That had to be in by October of last year, and we, as you know, we barely made that. The bottom road right now is 23 feet, but you say you guys are you guys requiring 26 feet on all new developments?
Our current code has that as the minimum standard, yes.
Our minimum standard now, and just for clarification, the current road that Nate is proposing is 23 feet wide asphalt plus curb and gutter, which gets it to the 26 feet wide. But the code is 26 feet of asphalt plus curb and gutter, which is about 30-ish feet.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, I think I have room, and I would be, if you guys are requiring this throughout the town and that's your code, I could widen that road 3 feet. You drive
Very
through
good.
some of the subdivisions in the town, and they do feel a little bit narrow, and I agree. So if that's the code and you want me to do that, I could make that bottom road 6 feet. It would take moving a couple of the lots, probably the bottom road of the lots in phase 4. So the lake side of those lots, or the downhill sloping side, we just shift those down 3 feet. But I think that we have room to do that.
Terrific.
I would be open to do that. Yeah, we could make that as a condition of approval.
Hey Nate, this is Chris. I have a question about Shoreline Drive. I thank you for putting in the separate bike lane that goes from, well, it goes, you connected it from Ross Creek up to the beginning of Deer Waters phase 1, and then it just stops. When is that part of this plan? Is that separate bike pedestrian trail that's paved off the road? Because that road is going to get a lot more traffic, right? Once.
Yeah. So Chris, just so you know, that would be through Deer Waters phase 1 and phase 2 that we're putting in. We're going to continue the trail, and then it'll be continued in 3 and 4. But we have a bond up for phase 1 and phase 2. We just haven't done that because there's so much construction. It just ruins it. And so that'll be the last thing we do. But we're about finished in phase 1 and 2. And so we'll put that in at probably, I would say, sometime maybe late July or August this year. And then we also have a bond up for the rest of the trails that go behind the homes in phase 1 and 2 and come up and around and loop into Shoreline. And so we'll do that also. We've just been, as you know, the Lakeview Estates, we have to move that lift station. And so we're going to get rid of our lift station that's in Deer Waters phase 1 and run a gravity line down to the GCD road. I'm not sure what road that's called. So we have not put that trail in that runs along that bottom road just because we're going to be tearing it up here in the next, I'd say month and a half.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just concerned. I mean, there's a lot of traffic now, relatively speaking, on
Yeah.
Shoreline Drive, construction traffic, homeowner traffic, just people passing through. And I just want to make sure it stays kind of safe, more safe for anybody who lives here who's recreating.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we will have those trails in, sometime. It just matters. We can't, to be honest, we can't even get concrete, but I don't want to put them in until the homes are started and maybe backfilled. Just because that you can see how that Shoreline Road got just completely torn up with all the heavy equipment going down at GCD's project. And this came up, and I said it in the planning commission meeting. My plan is when I have a crew moving up there, if I get approved tonight, they'll move up there and we'll hopefully start construction on Monday. My bonds are in place and everything's done. But as soon as the asphalt plant's open, I'm going to go in and patch the road. And then when I'm done, probably the end of next year, hopefully we're built out of this, I'll come in and put a 1-inch overlay over the top of that road. So it'll be a brand new road when I leave. And right now, I mean, it's a shame. There's not a road that can handle the heavy equipment that mainly, I mean, I've done some of it also, but mainly GCD has taken they move heavy trucks and they've just ruined this road. I mean, it's just shameful, but I'm going to go in and get it fixed. And when I leave here in this subdivision in a year and a half or so, I'll put a 1-inch overlay over it and it'll be a brand new road. And there's some trails that need to be fixed that, have been damaged too, by just cars moving off because that road's just not that wide. And so it'll look brand new when I'm finished. But it's gonna
just so the council knows, we've finally got that road that's the emergency road that runs below Deer Waters and Lakeview and Shoreline phases 3 and 4.
It's
to the
blocked.
point where it's now passable.
Mary,
It's been
it's blocked off.
resurfaced.
It's blocked off, and I was up there yesterday, and they still have their heavy trucks running on that road.
Well, now that that's done, we need to, I'll make sure the guys are routing stuff down that road because that's what they're supposed to be doing now. We've got that road.
Yeah, because like I say, when the asphalt plant's open sometime in April, well, I would say probably May, we'll come in and patch all the places that need to be patched and get the road, drivable again. I mean, it's drivable, but it's just not a very good road right now. And then when we finish some of the construction, I don't think it will be this year. Let's just see how the road does the rest of this year. We'll come in and put a 1-inch overlay on it, and when all the trucks are done driving on it, it'll be a brand new road when we're finished. And that's something that I wasn't planning on doing. It wasn't something that I'm bonded for. It's just, I just don't feel good about it. To be honest, the road is it's gone to hell. I mean, I can't believe it, but there's not a road in the state that could handle, those heavy trucks. And, so we'll get it fixed and make it nice again.
Thank you. Mayor, how are we enforcing that GCD uses that new gravel road that goes along the fence line?
We will be pulling their permits if they don't. That's
Well,
how we're gonna
I can concur. I was out there on my bike an hour and a half ago, and big truck, coming down Shoreline Drive. I'm sure the people that live along there can count them, but I saw it myself.
Do we need a flagman to redirect them that's stationed there to make sure that they don't drive on the asphalt and they use the emergency road instead?
Jerry, I don't have a way to staff that, but I think the threat of losing their building permit should be sufficient.
Maybe what I could do is and you guys would have to tell me or have someone design the sign, and I'll pay to get it built and put up that just says something like heavy trucks are to use this access road. Because right now it's not, I mean, it's marked, but you have new truck drivers driving in all the time. And so they would have no idea that this is there unless they're, just but they use
Yeah.
such large companies that you get new truck drivers on a daily basis. So maybe we need to get a big sign that just, and points down that, you know, heavy trucks need to go down this road.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Nate. We can do that. Shouldn't take long to do that. Just
Okay.
trucks above X thousand pounds to
Yeah.
take this road.
Hey, along that point, I was speaking with the GCD construction manager the other day. And if I understood him correctly, he said that road, the road that they built, the emergency accident road, couldn't handle those big trucks.
Well, that's, Bob, that road is built in order to handle emergency equipment, including the firefighting type stuff. So it should be able to handle it.
All right, good.
And that might be true in the winter and when it rains and everything, but other than that, when it's dry up there, it should be fine.
That's all bedrock kind of stuff in that road. It should be, I mean, they've got heavy equipment on it every day. They're down there moving dirt all the time on down there. So I don't see that as an issue.
Well, and I'm not here to talk, you know, bad about GCD.
Look at the engineers to work on that.
But yeah, if you guys want me to get a sign up there, we'll get a sign. But so I went from 112 units down to 102. And then, you know, we'll get the trails that are not in, but part of my trail system goes along that road that we were just talking about along the fence line. So obviously we don't want to put that in until we have some kind of, until it's figured out, because it'll just be ruined.
Yeah, definitely, Nate. I agree with you on that.
And then if you guys, if your ordinance is 26 feet wide roads, which I think it's a great idea, because the roads are just too narrow when you drive through town in a lot of places. I would be willing to shift that road, you know, 3 feet, not shift it, but widen it 3 feet. So
Great. That would be good. It needs to be. That road is the main artery now for us in town.
yeah. And I think that's it. I wish we could see a plat just so you could see how we did the roads, or did the buildings different, you know, a single level compared to a 2 level, just so when you're looking across the road from, if you're on the Jordanelle side or the, you know, the Deer Valley side of the Jordanelle, looking across, it doesn't look like row housing. And one thing we've done that other builders haven't done is they grade their site completely level. We go with the contours, and so ours doesn't look like that, because we go with, you know, we use the contours of the ground. We don't like to level everything. You know, level everything.
Our code actually calls for staying with the contour of the town. So
yeah. So, but it's something we prefer. I think it looks better too.
So Mayor, can we see that?
I don't have that. I don't have that plat in a PDF form. So
I could show it if it's easy enough, Mayor. I have it.
yeah, I'm happy to give you the, I can stop my share. There it is. So in theory, Thomas, since you're a co-host, you should be able to share.
Okay. Nate, is this the one you're talking about?
That's it. Yep.
Yep. So you could see here, this is phase 3. This road D is phase 4. And you can see that Nate has created a variety of footprints, building sizes that are pretty varied through here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Sorry.
I'll also note that you'll see that there is some half townhomes there as well. Nate agreed to do that. Kurt and I worked with him on that last year because that impinged upon, I mean, they got really close to the buildings on the shoreline, or I'm sorry, on the Longview road. So those are 2 of the 10 that got reduced.
And just so you know, like on this plat, if you look at road D, I'm saying if you guys want me to do the 26-foot road, I'm gonna widen it on the 89 through 102 side. I don't want to push 88 into 77 any more than it is, or 81 into 69. And so we would drop that road down. And the other thing that I can see right here, we'd have to do is 89 and 90. If you can see that building, it's the first building on phase 4.
Yeah.
We would move 80, we would drop 89 back so you still have the offset, or drop 90 back. So you see how 90 is in front of 89?
Yeah.
We would drop 90, yeah, right there. We would drop 90 back so you still have the offset, but because it gets pretty tight with 89 and the trail we're putting in there. So we would leave 89 where it's at, so we had the 20-foot driveway, but we'd move 90 back. And that's not how this plat is showing, but we'd have to do that to gain that 3 feet.
And Nate, this road, you'd likely widen it kind of more on this side.
Exactly. Lots 89 through 102, yeah.
Okay.
And we have plenty of room. And one thing, and I guess I don't know if you vote on, there's 2 different topics here. So if we want to stick to phase 3, or we can just talk about the overall, because it's kind of combined. I don't know, Polly, what we should do, but I've been talking about both of them, even though there's 2 different items on
Well,
it.
2 separate votes, but you can, I think, talk to them.
Okay. So one thing that the Planning Commission really talked about was the park. And Thomas, I think you have some, well, we've made the changes, and I don't know if this is I don't think this is the changes that I sent. You should have it in your email.
I do have that plan if you want to see it, if you want me to.
Yeah, because they added some really cool things. They had me add a drinking fountain. They had me add some benches and some picnic tables. And you can see, yeah, let's just see that really fast.
And while Thomas is pulling that up, I recall also from the changes we made to the town code that the town now, the Planning Commission particularly, signs off on road names. And I see this plat has just Road D. So I don't know if you've envisioned a name for that road yet or not. But
yeah, we just got the approval from the county. I think I'm not 100% sure if I remember it, but it's something like Silver Hill Loop. I sent them like 10 names and everything. If you have anything that's been used before, you don't get to use it. But they did come up with a name, and I think it's called Silver Hill Loop. Kind of stupid if you ask me, but that's what they told me we had to use. So just really quick, so we have 2 pickleball courts. We have a playground for kids. We have 4 benches. We have sitting area around the playground. We have sitting area around the pickleball courts. We have a drinking fountain. Our trail system is going to run right down to the park. And the other thing that, Thomas, the plat that you showed, I think we added 6 more parking stalls on the road in phase 4, because we figure some people might want to drive to the park rather than walk there on the trail. And
I
so
was going to ask that question because I'm sure that the people will drive down to play pickleball when they get there.
yeah, so the Planning Commission asked us if we would add six. So we added 6 more stalls, and I think
those are all perpendicular spaces off the road, so they're easy.
Yeah, off the road. Yeah, I think it was a great idea.
And Nate, you still have the trail that I guess at this point will be stubbed out that meets up with a Lakeview trail, future Lakeview trail.
Yes, yeah, it does. It's not, it's not shown on here, but it shows it on Lakeview. So let me get that put back on this plat. But yeah,
Nate, is that the trail that kind of is stepped up from Lakeview into this development? Yep.
Yeah, it gets really steep, and so it goes to steps, and then it goes to the trail.
Be over in this area over here, I think.
Yeah, towards the bottom of, right, that's it. And Thomas, I don't know if you can remember the other things that they had me add to the, I know I saw an email from you, but.
You added in, no, it was the
Aren't
CD.
they in this letter, Thomas?
Say that again?
Aren't they all in this letter?
They are. They're in that letter, and he incorporated those into.
Yeah, it's all on there now. You guys may want to see something else, but they want a drip system to the trees, and that was something that a member of the community asked that we did last at the Planning Commission, and so we'll get that done, and it's showing that on the plan. But we're really excited. I just picked up pickleball about a month and a half ago, and it's kind of addicting. My wife and I and the kids go play it a couple times a week, and we actually really enjoy it. So we're excited to get this built.
Hey, Thomas, speaking of pickleball, there's some specification in your recommendations of a 3 to 6 foot high small fence.
Yeah.
I have never played pickleball. What's the appropriate fence size so that you can keep the ball inside without having to go run after it?
This was based on Nate's recommendation. So Nate, you can explain that.
Yeah, you see them as high as 6 feet, but we thought because of the views and we didn't want people just to see a fence from the lake, that 3 to 4 feet would be appropriate.
And Nate, does it need to be solid, or could it be something that's see-through?
No, it's a chain. It'll be black chain link.
There is a stipulation, Thomas, in your recommendation that no chain link fencing is permitted.
So we'll have to change that, Nate. If you're proposing a black chain link fence, we can work with you on black as long as it's not galvanized steel, galvanized silver. And I'll have to change that final recommendation there, because we do not want a solid fence. We do want it to be see-through.
Well, yeah, it's but I mean, I've only seen probably 40 or so and all of them have this black chain link fence. It's not around the park. It's just around the courts. Just so you know, we're not fencing the park. We
just
want
to keep the ball in the
we want it to feel open. We want it to feel inviting. This is only around the courts, and so I don't know if there's an ordinance that says that. I don't know that would apply, because I mean it's only around the courts. It's not around the playground. But
I haven't played pickleball either, so I don't know how big the ball is. Could it make its way through chain link?
No,
Standard
it's
chain link?
It's a tennis, for all intents and purposes, it's a tennis ball. It's a wiffle ball, but it's a tennis ball.
Yeah.
Oh.
But you look up any fence, or any pickleball court, it's I'd say 95% of them are this black chain link.
I'm wondering if you could do vertical wrought iron. Could you do a vertical wrought iron that would do the same thing, but wouldn't be black chain link or wouldn't be chain link?
I think it would be worse. Jerry.
It won't look as good, and it just won't look as good.
Won't look as good at all.
Okay.
Hey, Nate, question about the lighting. I see it down here in number 6, and I remember when you came before the planning board on the first time. So this looks good. I just wanted to make some comments. I thought the area around the public space looks pretty decent. Nice improvements. We're potentially about to pass, just like Jerry was alluding to, our current standard for road width. We may pass some new standards around dark skies and lighting. Would the lighting meet potentially the current or the new potential requirements? So
yeah, we will
think about that anyway.
We will meet any dark. We believe in dark sky, so it'll meet whatever requirement you guys put in place regarding dark sky.
Great.
We'll make that work.
Yeah, that goes for the phases too, obviously, because.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other notes, Thomas, that you want to point out?
No, you guys have actually walked through my other points with regard to the landscape plan, the trails, et cetera. So you've covered everything. We put together an ordinance that outlines findings of facts, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval. It's at the end of this report. And so I've been updating as we've gone along. And so I've kept it up to date that outlines all of the recommendations of Planning Commission and Town Council to date.
I do have a comment about your ordinance, Thomas. And I may be wrong here, but it did say findings of fact that the property was located on Longview Drive. Is it not, is that area not Shoreline Drive?
That is Shoreline there, isn't it? You're right.
Right.
Correction. Good catch.
Phase 3 is in Shoreline.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I just happened to catch it. And also in your ordinance, there were some typos. That's the teacher and me coming out again. So just before we actually pass it, let's just, or have Alicia, whoever does it, check for those typos.
Will do so. Thank you.
And
Okay.
are we sure 3 feet is high enough if the purpose is to keep balls in the court area? Do we have something that says that that's adequate or not? Because I'm thinking, any new player is probably not.
Gary, just, these aren't tennis balls. They don't really bounce very high, but that's why I say 3 to 4 feet. I would think 4 feet on the downhill slope and 3 feet on the uphill slope.
So there's a whole National Pickleball Association with recommended standards and all that stuff. I suggest we look at that
Yeah, just
before we make the final call. And I trust Thomas to work through that.
that's fine.
Okay, that's reasonable. Can we change then any language about the fence height to say in accordance with the standards from whatever body that Phil just mentioned?
Typing that in now. Yes.
So I have a question of process here. I don't recall having done ordinances for other approvals. So is this new now? Is this how we're
Yes.
doing these now? We're having ordinance?
So Thomas, Ryan, and I discussed this, and we're recommending that we start doing ordinances. They don't become part of your municipal code, but they are on file with the town clerk. And by doing this, what we have is a very good record of the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the conditions of approval. And what we've found in the past is that it's just been really onerous to try to track all that down. And also it makes it more defensible if we have a written condition of approval that's been approved by the council, as opposed to just something in the minutes where staff is just interpreting what we think a majority of the council thought. So that is why we're kind of trying to make this a little bit more formalized, so that it makes it easier for staff to make sure that all of these items are adhered to when it's time to sign the plat. And I apologize that we didn't explain that before this item.
As former planning commissioner chair, this is fantastic. I wholly support this idea. It's a much better way to keep track of what was agreed to and conditioned.
So Thomas, since you're making changes, can you also make the change that we're going to widen Road D to address health and safety issues?
Yes, I have made that change.
Just very impressive way to package it all, Paul. I just knew it was new. So thanks for bringing us all up to date on that. It's really nice.
Thomas did a great job.
So the
putting it
only thing
together.
we need to do is we need to figure out with Alicia, make sure that, because we turn in a lot of these ordinances to get codified with the rest of the town stuff, but
Yeah, I'll work with
obviously there's-
Alicia, but they'll be on, I think we have a spot just for ordinances.
yeah, we have ordinances on the webpage, but I don't want it to go into Municode.
Yeah, we'll work with her. That's what we'll do. But then it's also, we can refer to the ordinance itself on the plat. And so if there's any question about intent or just kind of to help with the trail of this, we'll be able to find that ordinance number pretty quickly on our website and in the recorder documents, so that we can make sure that everything's adhered to, or kind of understand what the council was intending.
Okay, good, very cool.
Okay.
In addition to what Thomas covered, there are comments from engineering that are also incorporated here, which primarily deal with retaining walls and permitting.
Right. And we've incorporated those into the ordinance as well.
Okay.
And those incorporate some of the findings in the new title as well, some of the rules and restrictions about retaining walls and heights thereof and distance from another and all of that kind of stuff, right?
So this is a public hearing. And so if the council's through with their questions, and I'll open the floor to participants for comment on this proposed subdivision. Again, it's been through planning commission. This is not new. It's a renewal. Actually, it was approved more than a year ago as stated. So this is, but we do appreciate the upgrades and changes that have been made. So anybody is open to the public who wants to comment on the Deerwater subdivision phases 3 and 4. If you would raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, it's *9. We will attempt to recognize you. Okay, I see no comment, no hands raised. So then I'll close the public input and move to the council, where we would need a motion to approve this ordinance with the modifications as described this evening on both the road width and the fencing for the pickleball court. If we're prepared to let it move forward.
I'll move that we accept the ordinance with the changes that we discussed.
I'll second it to Jerry to back you up, since I think we remember going back here a couple of years on this.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Jerry. And would you clarify for the record, Jerry, that this is both phase 3 and phase 4 that you're?
Yes, with
Motion for?
reference to the draft ordinance 21-XX titled an ordinance approving the Deerwaters Phase 3 and 4 subdivisions located in Hideout, Utah.
Thank you. Okay. I'd like to pull the council for approvals. Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And Jerry?
With appreciation to the developer for making these changes to meet our current code,
Mhm.
enthusiastic yes.
Thank you.
Okay, nicely done, folks. Thanks for that. Good discussion. Thank you, Nate, as for stepping up on your side of the table as well. We appreciate that.
I appreciate all the hard work
Okay.
on these changes. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Nate.
We're now going to move on to the next agenda item, which is a consideration to grant a 30-day extension for the Plum subdivision beyond the 1-year timeline to record with Wasatch County. We have a letter from the builder for this property. Their paperwork is delayed, and as a result, they're going to miss their 1-year anniversary for the recording of the Plum subdivision. So we're not revisiting the Plum subdivision. We're just looking to grant them an additional extension so they can get it recorded.
Can we be reminded what our code, what our legal around extensions and how long and that sort of thing? What's the legal ramifications of this?
This was the under the prior code, and it was a 1 year. approval, and everything is done. Everything is ready to go. There was an issue with the letter of credit, and it might be in, Alicia might know this better than me. The issue was, would the town have time to run it around, get the final signatures and get it up to the recorder's office in time? That may still happen, but this was to give the town staff the time to get the actual document recorded. And Alicia, I don't know, do you know if you received the final letter?
So I got an email from the bank today saying that it was ready to go, but I haven't actually seen the signed document. So we're close.
So this extension is more for our staff to do what they need to do at the tail end of this, rather than
That is correct.
for the developer to continue to do some stuff.
Right. There's no work being done or allowed to be done on the subdivision, but this is for the town.
Well, there's earthwork going on, Thomas. You do have a grade permit.
That's right. That's right. But
So
nothing
there's work
would
being done.
impact the subdivision itself.
No. And this is the 30-day extension. I support the extension.
And I think Dylan might have had his hand up. Dylan, did you want to add something?
Dylan's on the town engineering staff, so for those that didn't know.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Okay, thanks.
Should
Yeah, I
be-
can unmute myself. Yeah, they completed their subdivision construction permit per our new code and submitted their cash warranty bond and their inspection fee and their application fee. And we had a pre-construction meeting to get them going. So in a sense, for the last couple weeks, they've been doing at-risk development, but in order to record their plat, they have to have the letter of credit, and that was the last step. But Ryan signed the plat today, so that's just an update.
Thanks, Dylan.
We're trying to
So
get,
I don't know.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm talking to Jason Day right now. He's trying to get unmuted. And I can't see where he is to get him unmuted, so. But he does have something to say.
He's down here.
And Jason's relationship to this is what?
He's the builder.
Hey,
Hold on.
everybody. Jason here.
And Jason, you're unmuted.
Cool. I had thought that we just had to hang up. I did a letter of credit instead of a bond, and we thought that 2 weeks ago we'd be done with the letter of credit, and the little title company that we used had a snafu and the paperwork just sat and spun until a couple days ago. So we thought we'd be done. We're just waiting for the title company to drop docs, and I should be closing tomorrow morning. We thought we'd close today. So that's the only thing remaining. Everything else is ready to go. Alicia just had the idea to make sure we put it on the agenda just to get an extension, just to make sure there's signature time. So I apologize for that. I should have been yelling at the title company. I had no idea the bank was struggling.
So procedurally, Mayor, what do you need here to move forward on this?
That's what I'm about to ask Polly. What do I need to do this, Polly?
You just need a motion to extend the,
Grant the extension.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need a motion to grant a 30-day extension for the Plum subdivision from April 9th, which is when the current one expires, to May 9th, basically.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll
Your
second.
second. Thank you, Carol. Jerry,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, Jason, you got your 30 days. Or Alicia, you have our 30 days. Whoever's court the ball is in, we have 30 days. Should be sufficient. Thank you. Next item, Jerry, you had asked for some time on the community enhancement committee
Yep.
regarding town signage. I don't have any document on that. Is there something you want to share?
Yes.
All right, I'll drop off the agenda share and leave it so you can pop something up if you like.
Okay. We see in a presentation now.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to thank the Community Enhancement Committee. That includes Gwen Wetzel, who's a resident, Jan and Carol from town staff, Thomas from town staff, and Chris is a second from the council on the committee. So I want to thank all of them for their work on this. One of the things that the committee was tasked with looking into was updating our town signage. So right now, our town signage looks like this. We have two signs. The one on the left is the one that sits along 248 that probably very few of you actually knew existed. It's very small and you can drive by it without even seeing it. In fact, to get this picture, I went on Google Maps Street View, and it took me a while to actually even find the sign on Google Street View. So this is one that we want to replace. The contrast is terrible on it. It's pretty much invisible alongside the road. The other one, the brown sign here, is the one that Park Record insists on using. It's actually a bulletin sign. We are required to have various bulletin stations throughout the town when we post public stuff. So this is actually not a town sign, but a bulletin sign. It doesn't reflect well upon the town. I mean, it's poorly constructed, and these woodblock letters, it's just not attractive at all. So one of the things that we wanted to have a look at is, well, what are some of the other signs within town? So, we looked at some of the other things that are happening in town, and of course the town hall has a nice sign here. We have the first two subdivisions in town, Hideout Canyon and Rustler, also have some subdivision signs. And there's sort of an accidental theme happening here where we've got some stamped steel or weathered steel against some sort of a natural background, whether it's natural stone or some wood siding here. So there was some things that are happening already in town that we wanted to make sure that we incorporated those concepts into it so that we didn't do something that's totally out of character for what town history actually has in place. So there's a little.
An electronic sign board, Jerry?
What's that?
Couldn't get you to put up an electronic sign?
An electronic sign. I don't think an electronic sign would be in character with the town, but all right. So a little bit of history here. So when the Deer Springs annexation occurred a few years ago, part of that annexation approval included a developer-funded monument sign for the town of Hideout. Originally, that was supposed to exist at a T intersection where Longview was going to run into Deer Springs and have a T connection at the Ross Creek entrance. Well, conditions required a different configuration of the roadway. So that T intersection never happened. So a monument sign at that location became very impractical for where it was originally designed. So the developer, Deer Springs developer Nate, has agreed to fund the design and installation of a new powered town monument sign along State Road 248. The developer additionally intends to install some subdivision signs, which is his right to do, at the entrance to Deer Springs at Bellevue and Longview, which is right across the street of the road from that brown bulletin sign. So it's very proximate to the Deer Springs subdivision, and thus also the proposed subdivision signage. And as I already mentioned, that brown sign is unsightly and doesn't reflect favorably on the town at all. We do require a bulletin sign location throughout the town, so we can't just tear it down without replacing its functionality. And what we're proposing, the committee's proposing, is that the brown sign be removed, a new bulletin sign be designed and placed, and we're proposing that that placement is along the Jordanelle Parkway where a future bus stop is tentatively planned. And that the developers agreed to fund as well. And the developers also agreed to remove the old town sign. So again, the brown sign would go away, the existing town sign would go away in favor of new versions. And so we're going to talk about that here a bit. So on a map standpoint, we have 4 sign locations that are marked here. So if we start at number 1, that's where the existing brown bulletin sign is. It's at the Ross Creek entrance. Number 2 is where the current town sign exists along 248. 3 is where we're proposing the new town sign to be placed. It's adjacent to the Deer Springs Park. So we're going to take advantage of that. And some of the things that that's bringing us, I'll talk about later. And then finally, shown on the map here, number 4 is where we're proposing the new bulletin sign be placed. And that would be adjacent to a future bus stop. And not shown on here is a proposed eastern boundary sign that would be along 248 near the entrance to Golden Eagle. Okay, any questions about these placements before I move on? Okay, so moving on.
Jerry,
Yep.
I'm sorry. Dumb question. What would it not serve us better if we put the signs near the mailboxes where everybody goes? Or do we need the more public viewing exposure from being on a highway?
It's a valid point that we could talk about where that bulletin sign location needs to be. When we look at a proposed design of it, that may impact the thinking on this. But yes, we could certainly talk about some alternate locations or multiple locations within the town. It doesn't have to be where number 4 is listed. We thought that would be a good location because it services the western side of town, which is, you know, relatively unserviced right now. We have Town Hall, which is one of the bulletin locations, which is central. But you know, do we have coverage on the eastern side? Do we have coverage on the western? Do we have coverage on central? You know, so we can have those conversations.
One location you're not reflecting, Jerry, is we do post at the affordable Deer Mountain Affordable Community as well.
Yeah. So right now the 3 is Town Hall, the brown sign, and Deer Mountain Affordable.
Deer Mountain Affordable. Yep.
Okay. And we are required to have 3.
That's correct.
Jerry, that was going to be my question. How many? I actually love the idea of putting one along the Jordanelle Parkway in that vicinity because that'll give us, you know, complete coverage.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. The other thing I would add, Jerry, is looking at number 4. You know, when you place, if the sign gets placed before the bus stop, you know, placing it in the right spot, so we're not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, so it's not being covered by the bus stop. So I'm assuming Nate would, or the developer would appropriately place that beforehand, thinking about the future.
And if Nate's still with us and wants to chime in on that, I believe Nate's been working with the some traffic with regard to what's going on with MIDA and everything else. So there's, you know, MIDA's working a transportation plan for the area, and that's why this is a potential bus stop location.
Yeah, I'm still here, and it's still up in the air, and so obviously number 4 is kind of preliminary. I would think number 3 would be not near as preliminary as number 4, but there is going to be a bus stop right in that area, and so that's where, I mean, that's where, if you want to put one on this side of town, this makes really good sense. So
yep.
And do these?
I'm sorry,
one question: do these get lighted? Are they backlit in a?
We'll talk about that as we get into looking at the preliminary designs for each. Generally speaking, number 3, our new town monument sign, yes, it would be lighted. Number 4, probably not, but we can assess whether or not that's a necessity or not, but probably not on number 4.
So
Phil, did you
the
have
other reason
something
I
to add
like,
to?
yeah, the other reason I like the movement of number 3 is the town has expanded since the original monument sign was put in. So Deer Springs was an annexation. And so, you know, it's closer to the true entrance to Hideout coming from US 40. So I like the idea of moving it up there because it reflects where Hideout is better.
Yeah. Now we could entertain. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So we could entertain moving it, you know, really closer to the end of where Deer Springs is, which is, you know, closer to where the town boundary is. But there is a trough in here that would make installing a sign in there significantly more expensive to be able to get it up to a level where it could be seen from the road. And additional to that, we are intending to power it, and we have power going to the park already. So we want to take advantage of that.
Makes
So
sense.
if we had to
Makes
run
sense.
power further down here, then it would add to the cost as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we're going to design a new sign, right? So there are things that we want to take into account. What themes do we currently have running throughout the town? Well, obviously we're a mountain community, and obviously we're on the shores of the reservoir. So we have a water theme going on as well. And it's not hard to look around town and see that we have tons of natural stone that's indigenous to our area. We're also, you know, in a wooded area, whether that's trees or scrub brush, or, you know, we have natural wood throughout the area. This Western theme, you know, goes all the way back to the name of the town. You know, it's Hideout. You know, one of our subdivisions is Rustler, with housing names like Wrangler and Eastwood. And, you know, we have all sorts of this Western theme going on, including the signage itself are actually cattle brands. So I went one too far. So both Hideout Canyon and Rustler are sort of an homage to a cattle brand. So we have a lot of Western theme running through the town. And then finally, this accidental theme of the weathered steel. We wanted to play with that notion as well. So with all those things put together, the Nate's team presented the committee with, I think we've seen 5 different designs for the monument sign. And as a committee, we chose one and then asked for some additional changes to it. So that's what I'm going to present to you now. So this is a proposed town monument sign on the western side of town. So let me orient you here. So obviously the Jardinel's over here. These are roofs to the houses, some of the houses in Deer Springs. This road that you see here currently is the access road to the pond that currently exists. And this is what the sign approximately would look like. Now, the gray that you see there would actually be stone, natural stone. And the design for the bulletin sign illustrates that a little better, but imagine, if you will, that gray is stone. So let me do a little closer view on it here as well. So we have all of these elements that are playing, and we have the natural stone, we have the wood, we have some weathered steel. So the brown parts that you see here that says Hideout Utah, that would be weathered steel that is backlit. So the Hideout Utah would be cutouts, and it would be lit from within the structure. So it would be dark sky compliant. We toyed with the idea of having, you know, it's possible here that we could have some sub signage, whether we wanted to have our town logo or maybe a dark sky certification statement or something along those lines that could occur here on these wings. So we also wanted the sign to be simple enough that as time progresses, that it ages well. If we went too, you know, font crazy, in 10 years, it's going to look odd. So we wanted to make sure that our font selections were timeless And we also wanted to make sure that we included Utah. We are not just another community like Deer Mountain or Deer Vista, etc. We are a town, and we are becoming a grown-up town. So we want the monument sign to carry some of that prestige with it as well. So I'll pause and entertain some comments here.
I think it's really handsome. Really, really, really
Jerry,
sharp.
can you go
I like
over-
it.
Oh, sorry, Mayor. Jerry, can you go over, and I don't have the drawing in front of me, but maybe dimensions, what the existing sign is, if you have that, and what this is?
I don't have those dimensions.
Oh, we had it at one of our meetings. It's about triple the sign that's there now, if I remember right.
I think it's actually more than that, Nate. I think our existing sign is like 8 feet tall, and this is significantly taller and obviously wider than that. I mean, we want it to be visible as you're driving down the road. So that was a huge import. Now, you'll also notice that this picture shows a lot of trees. Well, this is one of the things that we're taking advantage of the park for, because the park is intended to put this noise and visual block from 248. So all of these new trees are part of what would be going in for the park. So it gives a great backdrop to the sign as well. Okay, so let me show you. Here's what it would look like on the eastern side of town. Now, this was drawn, in my mind, a little too close to the entrance to Golden Eagle, which you see here. The actual town boundary is about 100, 150 yards behind us as we're seeing it here. I would probably see moving this sign a little closer to that. I don't want there to be any visual block as people are trying to exit out of Golden Eagle. So move this further enough away that we don't become a visual block to oncoming traffic. But this gives you a sense.
Jerry, I'm anticipating widening there for the entrance, the formal entrance to Golden Eagle as we get to that stage. So
yeah,
but
absolutely.
we have time for that.
But this gives you a sense of what it looks like coming in from the Camas side as well. And it's a good looking sign, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, they put the town logo on the opposite side. So, we could play with that as well. And I'll talk to this a little bit on the next slide as well. But part of our idea here is that, look, town logos change over time. We don't want to replace the entire sign if that happens. We can remove this and replace it fairly economically without having to, tear down the whole sign or replace huge sections of it. Okay, so moving on to a little bit of the details here. So as we've already talked about, the western boundary sign would be adjacent to the Deer Springs Park, so we could take advantage of some of the things that are happening there in the park. It would be powered and, internally lighted so that it is dark sky compliant. The two sides of it could entertain subsigns, logo, dark sky compliance statements, etc. We could also solar power this. So the sign on the eastern side of town, we're not sure we can get power to it. So a solar power option is potential here as well. Now, as I already mentioned, Nate has agreed to fund the western boundary sign. The eastern boundary sign, if we wanted to do that, we would have to budget it. And that's part of why we're having this meeting here. One is to show you what we've been up to, but the other is to inform the budget committee that in the next 12 months or in the next fiscal year, we would want to appropriate enough money to put this sign in on the eastern side. And again, the budgetary estimate here is somewhere between 25 and 30,000.
Jerry, is that installed? And
yes.
Do you think we'd get a break? If we did two of them at once?
Well, Nate's paying for one of them.
Uh-huh.
And the other one, the city's
But
going to
you
have
would
to
commission
fund.
the same guy, I assume.
Yes, I would make that same assumption.
Yeah, so maybe, if we do two at once, we can get our sign, so to speak, or both of them at a little bit less.
Yeah, and Nate, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you know, if there was some economy of scale there that would give us a cost break, you know, you're tremendous working with the town. I would expect that, you know, you would be willing to do that as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, and to be honest, this is a number that I talked to the gentleman that designed the sign. He said, I don't really build signs, I design them, but I talked to my builder and I got kind of some footages on the wall or on the rock. And so this is just my best guess. It could be more, it could be less, but I don't think I think we're in the ballpark.
Okay.
But this was just a complete guess because we don't know what kind of rock you guys are going to choose. So yeah, I mean, it's a best guess. So.
Okay.
Thanks, Nate. Just one more comment at least, and that is on the eastern side, the way the picture was drawn, to me, it appeared the sign can get a little lost with the trees in the background. So do we need to consider some separation between the background and the sign? And the second thing with the signs, have we considered how far off they have to be off from the road? Because we certainly wouldn't want anyone running into a concrete post going 65 miles an hour. So I'm assuming we'd be within all regulations, but at the same time getting the benefit of being able to see the sign clearly.
That's a good point, Ralph. But more importantly is that's right away. And, you know, the current sign is, you know, 2 pillars. So it comes out, if they had to get in there to do right away work, you know, the sign could be salvaged. So we need to think about how this gets installed. Because both of these locations are in the right of way, which empowers all kinds of services to get through there. So we may have to challenge ourselves a little bit on whether that sits on post that could be, you know, you could put hooks on it and lift it out with a forklift or something to get it up and save the sign while having to do work underneath it, or if we have to change the design a little bit so that it allows that, because otherwise, if they have to go through there, I'm afraid they would potentially damage it over time.
Yeah, we could talk to our engineers about options there. Maybe if we run a decent sized conduit underneath it that allows them access if they needed to without having to disturb the sign, or some creative ways to address that.
So road safety and utilities have to get built into this a little bit.
Yep.
Hey, Jerry, I think this is a fantastic job right here. I just got a question, and maybe it's hard to get a feel for it looking on the computer screen, but the gray color of the sign reminds me more of concrete than say a natural rock. Are we kind of going for like a grayish granite color here?
No, we're looking for something more akin to a stacked stone look, I think is what the idea here is. So it'll be
the red rock, Jerry?
It'll be something indigenous to the area, you know, so we have a couple different color variants in the area. We have everything from the white to the red and the brown in between. So I think, you know, that's something that we can decide what we want that to be, but it needs to fit into the current environment.
Yeah, just a minor point, but I think, and it's hard to see from looking on a Zoom screen, maybe something a little lighter, a little more tan, I think would have better visibility, wouldn't blend in as much, and I think maybe look a little bit warm. But all in all, I think you guys did a knockout job with this. It's rather impressive.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the bulletin sign then. So the bulletin sign, and again, this replaces the what I call the ugly brown sign, but it's at least it's brown. So this would replace that. And again, we got this drawing this morning, so the committee has not had a chance to comment on it. So this is the first most of us are seeing this, and this is our first design concept. But this gives you a better sense of the sort of stone that we're anticipating that the monument sign would include as well, some sort of a stone pattern, whether it's stacked stone or such. But this gives you the idea. Again, the bulletin area has to be enclosed in glass. and protected from the weather. And this gives us, I think, a little bit more, it's in line with the other sign. So it's in the same sort of design palette. We have the weathered steel, our current logo here. And again, if we update the logo, then we replace the, this portion of it and not the entire thing.
It would be
Okay.
that tall. I have a question. You show the person there to
Yeah.
show an actual height of a person.
Yeah. Yep.
Tall sign.
Well, the existing brown sign is every bit
Is
that
that
tall.
tall? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you want the bulletin board to be relatively eye level. You don't want to have to bend
Right.
over to read it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of details on this. Again, the Jordanelle Parkway installation, we want it adjacent to a future bus stop if that ever happens. And the developers agreed to fund that installation. It's suitable for standalone installations as well elsewhere in town as needed. So if we wanted to add this somewhere else in town, we could. And again, the budgetary estimate for this one, if we decided to add additional ones, is the 12 to 15,000. Okay, anything else that any of the other committee members wants to add that I didn't cover? Or Nate, if you wanted to add anything or talk about anything, that's sort of the end of my presentation.
Nice job by the team. Really nice job by the team. Very, very cool. Really sends a very nice message, I think. I'm very impressed. I have to say.
I'm impressed. I think it looks great.
Yeah, good job, man, to the whole team.
All right.
I think the next step is maybe we choose some rock and then get a little firmer design. I don't know if this takes a public hearing or whatever to get public input or not, but maybe I could get Michael, who designed this, to just kind of put it more true to life, because like it is, it's not a concrete sign like it looks now. I was envisioning like a brown rock to go with the the still, but you guys can choose the rock, and we'll get it. We can get it designed for that.
I was thinking the same thing, Nate.
So,
but I like the next step is to let's imagine it in, there are several different ways that the rock could be laid, stacked stone or I don't know what the other was called, that's sort of the river rock kind of,
yeah.
So, let's imagine it with a few different stone option, both colors and lay style.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for letting us be part of this. Thank you.
And
yeah,
great. Thank you again, Nate. One thing I wanted to, if we're going to commit to the sign on the eastern side of town, we need to get it included in our next year's budget. So I don't know I'm sure we're going to be having those conversations in the upcoming months as we establish next year's budget. But from the budget committee standpoint, if we can make sure that we include some dollars for that, because I think it would be odd to have it on one side of town but not the other. Okay.
nice. Very nice. Cool. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, next up is discussion and consideration on, we're not gonna, the discussion tonight is on dark skies. I'm not planning to vote tonight because we wanted to do the communication is what we said last time, but we did make changes to it. So I wanted to have Thomas go through the language changes, make sure everybody's okay with it, and then we'll push it out there to the community so everybody is aware of it's coming, and then put it on the agenda for the May meeting for the final approval. So Thomas, you want me to share, or you just wanted me to scroll through it for you?
You can scroll through, that's fine. So yeah, just again, quick opportunity to catch you up. You all reviewed this at the last meeting. There were some questions, some discussion items. And so what we agreed to do was get together, Bruce Wolfley from the Planning Commission, Chris from Council, and myself got together and walked through some of the
I'm
issues.
sorry, Thomas, one second. Mayor, could you zoom in a 1 or 2 clicks on that? That's teeny. Thank you. Well, that's a little too much, but
Guys, get your glasses. Killing me.
So we were able to get together, and what we did is we tried to walk through what our notes and what our recap was from the council meeting. And we made some changes based on that. I also had the opportunity to touch base with Daniel Mendoza. He is at the University of Utah, and his background is both kind of this planning guy as well as a medical background in atmospheric science and a couple of other things. He's a kind of a jack of all trades, but all of them relate to the science of health, dark skies, the importance of dark skies, etc. I was able to touch base with him and walk through some just general questions and thoughts and concerns that you all had conveyed. So I'll try to recap what he said. In a nutshell, I asked him, one, what is the importance of International Dark Skies Association? Is it worth being certified? I think we had some discussions, and he said it is. He felt like the certification really keeps you, the town, you, the jurisdiction, it keeps you up to date, and kind of that biannual, that check-in, that little educational session. It's quite simple to do, and he recommended that is good policy. So that was number one, because I didn't have a very thorough understanding of exactly what IDA, International Dark Skies Association, did. So that was one. Two, we walked through kind of some specifics, and I'll outline those as we go through the ordinance or the code in detail. But there were some questions at the last meeting. We kind of used a lot of the helper ordinance from Helper Utah because they had a solid ordinance. Little pieces from here and there, some other communities, including Tucson and some other areas that have dark skies, but it's 80-85% helper. And before I told him that, I asked him, if you were looking at an ordinance for a town like Hideout in the Wasatch Back, can you give me an example of an ordinance that you might look to in terms of replicating, cutting, pasting, reviewing, et cetera? And he said, helper. So we were happy that he actually said that, because that's the one we used. So he felt it had good applicability. So that was helpful as well. He noted that he's doing a little bit of work with a capstone studio in, I think, fall semester of 2021 in Park City. I noted that if he was doing that, if we did a dark skies ordinance, some of the initial concerns were we'd like to be able to do a bit of a lighting inventory. We would like to find some folks that could, give us some lighting analysis and kind of on a, maybe an annual or biannual schedule. He noted that if they do end up doing their capstone work up in Summit County, Park City, that he could potentially send some students over. They've got a drone that they can kind of fly around and get a pretty good inventory of lighting. They also use, of course, the light measuring devices, handhelds, but we may have an opportunity to work with those students. He said he'll let us know in about 3 weeks when he kind of confirms what his fall semester exactly is. But I thought that was a nice opportunity where we could get some really professional help without really any cost associated with it. So we'll continue that dialogue and see how that evolves.
Very cool, Thomas.
So with regard to the dark skies, do you guys have any questions on that at kind of the high level? And then if not, I'll walk through some of the specifics that we incorporated. If none, all of the changes were incorporated in red. So you can see in the purpose statement, we wanted to make sure that we included a line item that noted the protection of the natural environment, the natural ecology for the area. If you scroll down a little bit more, again, clarification as to why we would have an educational session, and that is to pursue certification as a dark skies community with IDA, which is International Dark Skies. They don't count the skies association. Just clarification there. That's not a requirement of the ordinance, but it is a requirement of certification. We go through some of the definitions, and we added some clarification with regard to holiday lighting. And so there was some discussion. Park City and Summit County, I think their holiday lighting is November 15th to April 15th. There was some discussion amongst this group that we didn't want it to go quite that long. And so the recommendation was for a 2-month period, November 15th to January 15th, with the requirement.
So Thomas, so this is where we're not aligned with the HOA. They have a longer period. And so people are going to try and figure out who wins here, if you will. So I suggest we do a little bit of research on what the HOA is doing. I believe they allow it to go to the end of January, I believe.
Okay,
But
if that's the case, then I
Just-
would make a recommendation. They can be more restrictive, not less. And so whatever you decide here is what residents would have to adhere to. That said, if theirs is, I thought it was January 15th. If theirs is the end of January, I think we would want to tie
I don't
those.
know, let's just do the research. If you would make a note and do the research before we actually have to vote next month, we can sort it out
And I'm
between
also
now and then.
I'm also concerned about that it has to be turned off from midnight to 6 a.m. I mean, I know mine is dusk to dawn. My lights are on. I mean, my timer is set dusk to dawn. So, this would cause, heartache for me, and I'm sure a bunch of other folks who have similar timers on their lights. So, during the holiday period, I that's kind of the beauty of the thing is, drive around and see holiday lights and see that. So.
Hey, Jerry, I had the same concerns because I also am dusk to dawn, but if we can keep the duration of holiday lighting more limited than the current HOA duration, then dusk to dawn might be okay. I mean, we are trying to keep dark skies, right? That's the whole purpose of this. And we definitely want to acknowledge holiday lighting. But, finding that right balance, I think compromise balance is going to be important. I can tell you there are homes in this community that are super lit up, throughout the entire HOA time period where they have very
And beyond.
So I think we have to think dark sky, focus, obviously take into the consideration of what the residents are looking for. Sorry, I had a dog problem. Done. So anyway, Jerry, I think if we can keep the band narrower, narrow-ish for the total holiday lighting period, then we can definitely, entertain the dusk to dawn idea.
I think Wrestler is March 1st because there were notices going around to that level. Jerry, I'm not sure if you saw that.
Yeah, I did, but I don't anecdotally see a whole lot of homes lighting, much past January 15th.
Well, Jerry, one of the things is as we get more and more and more residents, they're going to bring in their practices from wherever they came from. And we want to make sure we have sufficient controls over, the holiday lighting and the just lighting in general, so that we can, keep the skies dark, not have a lot of extra light pollution.
Yeah, personally, I like the November to January, mid-November, mid-January. My only concern is I'd rather have a dusk to dawn here during those, 2 months essentially.
Yeah, I can definitely support that, Jerry, that idea.
And given the timeline is pretty short, the 2 month, 2.5 month, that's a fair compromise, I think. Ask questions as I go, folks. We included some lighting standards with regard, again, to holiday lighting, wreaths, et cetera. We wanted to make sure that we clarified that those are indeed allowed, because there are some subsequent sections of the ordinance that don't allow for any uplighting, but some people do uplight doors, wreaths, things like that. And so we incorporated that in here.
So Thomas, because most of us aren't familiar with, lumens and that kind of stuff. So, I've switched all of my holiday lighting to LED stuff, which is, it's certainly not lighting up the neighborhood, but there are folks that are still using incandescent or others. So your typical holiday light string in incandescent is going to be where in the spectrum?
So your incandescent lighting in general is going to be it's going to be brighter than the LEDs, right? And so typically I think the rule of thumb, and this is me doing research, I don't understand watts, or I understand that watts are a measure of energy, lumens are a measure of brightness. And so we're kind of transferring as we go to LEDs, we're not talking about energy as much, which is why we're now using lumens to measure brightness for the dark skies ordinances. But I understand that a typical string of lights is probably in the 25 to 50 watt range, give or take. And so it's probably going to hover 500 to 750 lumens. Lumens don't correspond directly to watts. Again, they're a measure of brightness. Watts is a measure of energy, but a string, probably 25, 35 watts.
Okay, so we're not mandating that people throw out their incandescents if they can still use their incandescents and be
They
in
would still
compliance
qualify.
here.
That's exactly
Okay.
right. Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Thomas, on C here, the uplighting of wreaths, you have a specifications. Is there any contemplation of a limit of the number of uplighting that can happen for holiday lighting? Or, if you have a couple of wreaths and a couple of uplights, it's one thing, but if you've got 50 of them, I don't know. I'm just asking because I didn't see any limit.
No, we didn't envision a number, but we could in fact put that in if you felt that was necessary.
Maybe it's over engineering until we have a problem, right? We could always go back and change it in the future. If we have someone who puts 50 uplights on and we're like, this is no good, we can always go back and rethink that particular part.
Yeah, and I think that we'll definitely want to do that after the first year of the lighting ordinance, or maybe the first year and a half, right? We'll definitely come back and revisit this and tweak where we need to tweak to ensure enforceability and to ensure the outcomes that you desire.
Yeah. Thanks.
We gave specification to what low output lamps were based on the recommendations from IDA and other ordinances. Everything beyond here stayed the same. If you
Oh, sorry, Thomas. So maybe the answer to this is that we have a net total of lumens for all individual property holiday lighting not to exceed 40 million watts or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And that so it doesn't restrict the number of things, it just restricts the total output around that property, which we have at a higher point in this anyway. We said no property is allowed to get past X at the fence line, and maybe we just make sure that this stuff, as long as this stuff doesn't take you past X at the fence line, you're okay.
We can do that. I'm making a note of that, and I will do some research and figure out what a total.
I think we had language that talks about, you have to be no more than so much at the fence line of your property. So
that's right. But I think you're talking about the holiday lighting in particular, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, whatever your lighting is, as long as you, including holiday lighting, as long as you don't exceed your fence line limit, then you're probably okay.
Okay. I made a note for that. I'll research that. There was some discussion with regard to, and we kind of have touched on it a little bit tonight, how the quality of holiday lighting in the trees, how nice it actually is, right? And so there were some discussions with regard to the trees at the entrance. They're kind of a town identification sign, a town identification for the entrance, right? And so we recommended exempting those because people do utilize those from a health, safety, welfare perspective as they try to locate the intersection as they're coming down 248. We also did the same thing at the circle. Again, kind of a town identification sign. So those could, in fact, they would be exempt from the lighting ordinance as recommended.
Anecdotally, Thomas, I support the thought process. I used to live in a community that did seasonal lighting, and that's how I found the entrance to my subdivision. And when they turned them off in April, I was very disappointed because I started driving past my entrance again.
Or
Well,
you tell your Lyft driver, look for the lighted trees, and when they're not lit, you're like, well.
Well, it was interesting when you all brought that up because I thought, gosh, when I first went to Hideout, I looked for the lighted trees too to know exactly where to turn off at 248.
Yeah.
That was just a note that I put under 101608(2). This ordinance, as it's written, indicates that fixtures over 1,500 lumens, that's about 100 watts. Again, keep in mind, one is energy, one is brightness, right? Are we okay if somebody had less than that, less than a roughly 100-watt light, that we don't require it to be fully shielded? Do we want that to also be fully shielded?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
We don't want to see light bulbs through the fixtures.
Okay, that's what I thought, but
The
that's
problem
not
today,
in the first round.
I mean-
I just caught that.
Yeah, no, I don't want to see light. I mean, the HOA code specifies that you're not supposed to see light bulbs. And we should be consistent there because I don't want to see light bulbs, even though I do right now in my neighborhood because there's a couple of homes that are not compliant.
Well, truly, you want to keep them from spilling upwards, right? So to me, it's less about do I see the light bulb or not, is does the light spill, to higher altitude? Is it pointed down to the ground? Is it, is that where the light's going, or is it spilling into the atmosphere? And we don't want that.
Agreed, Jerry. But at the same time, if you are like in Rustler, where there are terraced units, if you're on an upper terrace unit or a lower terrace unit or an upper terrace unit, and the guy below you has his lights on, they're often shining into your lower level if they're not shielded.
Yeah. So this is,
It's
one of the.
also, I know it's not specific to dark sky, but it is a nuisance. And I have a number, the town has a number of complaints about people leaving their lights on all night, or the HOA and Rustler keeping their lights on all night because it basically lights up their downstairs bedroom or whatever.
Yeah, and this goes to a point I was going to raise later, but now is a good time as any, I suppose, is to say we need to really understand what the implications are from if we implement this, because Rustler right now uses the building lights as street light, to illuminate around the street area. And if they have to go through and retrofit all of that, because they're mounted to the underside of the eave or the deck or whatever, and if that all has to be retrofitted, that's we need to be aware of that before we vote this in. We need to understand what the implications and impact is going to be.
Jerry, it could be possible that we wouldn't require any retrofitting, that people could be grandfathered in. We haven't talked about that yet, but ideally,
But yeah, we have.
Can I finish? Ideally, over time, we would like to have all lights comply, and the question is, what is that time frame?
Well, the ordinance speaks to it. It says 3 years. You got 3 years to come into compliance. And I want to understand what the cost implication is to that. If the Rustler HOA now has to budget, $100,000 to retrofit lighting, we need to be aware of that.
Understood. I think the 3 years was inserted in there. I think Helper is 5 years. I think International Dark Skies, they're sample ordinance is 5 years. So ours is rather quick relative to a standard that we've seen. So we can,
And honestly, I'm less concerned about the timeline than I am about the cost and retrofit implications to it. So, you know, if we come through and we say all of the lighting in Rustler is already compliant, then that's one thing. If it comes through and says none of it's compliant, that's a whole other thing.
I think we have to assume that anything that was built in the master development followed the guidelines that are enforceable by the HOA, and those are dark sky, I believe, were always dark sky compliant. Rustler could be an exception. I mean, it's started so long ago. I don't know if the HOA was,
Well, to
you know, what
Phil's
their
point,
design
you know,
review committee, if that even existed.
yeah. I mean, to Phil's point, all of the lights in Rustler are all downcast and none of them spill upwards. However, you can see bare bulbs because that's, you know, they're essentially pot lights that have been installed under the eaves or under the deck and such. So if we're saying you're not allowed to see bulbs, then all of Rustler is out of compliance.
This doesn't say that you're not allowed to see bulbs. This talks about partially shielded and fully shielded in the definitions.
Yeah, so
I agree, that's what it says, Chris, but it isn't what I commented. So my challenge was, do we want to see light bulbs or not?
I think we've defined fully shielded, partially shielded, and unshielded in here, and that's the definition. Whether or not light bulbs show is not defined in here.
and I tend to agree. If dark sky is our goal here, then let's make sure that the ordinance addresses what's necessary for dark sky. If you got somebody in a downslope unit that, you know, is complaining about an always on light at night that is likely designed that way because it's got a photo cell on it, so it's going to be on all night. And if that's troublesome, then, you know, that's, I don't know
But
that
we have
dark sky
language
needs
in
to
here to
address
say
it.
that all outside lights are supposed to turn off after midnight, I believe.
You know, I think the language you're interested in, Mayor, and we do have language in here that the lighting, if you are lighting, and maybe you can point to it, Thomas, but like if you've got a floodlight or a spotlight, you can have it on as long as the light doesn't shine outside your property line.
There's another language in here somewhere that says that nobody.
I think that was related to events. The midnight thing, I think, was related to any event. You know, if you had a sporting event or something, that those lights had to get turned off.
This is where we say we're trying to kill it between midnight and 6 a.m.
And this is going to be an issue for, it sounds like Rustler, theirs are on a sensor and they come on at night, but I think Shoreline does that as well, right?
I can talk to Shoreline. I just went outside and looked at my lights, and they're recessed way back. They're under the eaves. I believe that Shoreline 1 and Shoreline 2 have the same lights, and they are on all night.
And that's because they're on photo cells. They're not on timers or motion sensors. They're on photo cells.
Right, and we have no control over them.
Right.
I mean, none. So.
Well, here's your chance, Carol, to have control over them.
Well, again, I'm not sure that I want to, because we don't have street lights.
Yeah,
we don't have any
street lights either. Otherwise, it would be absolutely
it'd be pitch black.
Pitch black.
Yeah, and I don't want that either. That's a health and safety issue of its own. So, you know, I think the Rustler lights are today in compliance with dark sky, and I think they're necessary for, you know, unless we're going to install street lamps that are also dark sky compliant, and those are going to be on all night too. So You know, they're not
I'd
attached to
rather-
a building, but
Right.
Yeah.
I'd rather have our lights under the eaves, which
Yeah.
are non-invasive. I mean, they're,
I agree.
yeah.
So how can we get the HOAs to give us some feedback as to whether they would be in compliance with this? So we kind of know who would be out, who would be in, who would have to do some work.
Well,
Um,
Ralph, our intention was to take the language that we agreed on and provide it to the community, including the HOAs. So that's how we're going to get feedback once we agree that this is what we want to go out with.
So before we vote on this, we will.
And we're not
share-
voting on this tonight.
Right.
We're not voting on this.
And we
All
would
we're
get-
trying to do is agree on the language, and now it'll be highly publicized if we agree on what's in here tonight.
And we give them enough time, the various
And then we
HOAs
would say we would have a
Yeah.
public hearing at the next meeting to get feedback.
Mayor, I think that puts the burden on the HOAs to assess their compliancy. And I'm of the mind to understand, because if they don't do it and then we implement this, you know, it's fine to say shame on them for not doing it. But I think we as a council need to understand what the implications are and not defer that to the HOA to tell us what their impact is. That's my
I'm
opinion.
leaning
anyway.
where you are, Jerry, on that one, since maybe we can have one lighting engineer get some readings in the various, HOAs and get back to us.
So you want to wait and do that before we share this? Is that what we're saying?
No, I think it's fine to share it, and I think it's fine to gather some comment on it. But before we vote on it as a council, I think we need to understand what the implications are. And that requires an assessment of compliancy.
Thomas, do you think your contact could point us to somebody who does this kind of work for us besides the schools?
Yeah,
I don't know if we want to. I don't want to wait till
think about that
September
if we were
necessarily.
walking through this. I think that we can. I'll reach out to him this week, tomorrow, and see who he would recommend, and or if there is a group from the university that is maybe doing something this semester. He didn't indicate that the last time.
Yeah, or a summer project or
Yeah.
something.
I could do that. You all bring up a good point. Because you don't have streetlights in the community, I'm going to suspect that even with the HOA lighting that comes on at night with the solar cell, I'm going to guess you're probably within the 15,000 lumens that we've got here per acre. I would bet, but I don't know that. So yeah, we should get an assessment. Yeah, I'll reach.
Jan has a comment.
Heber just adopted a dark sky ordinance, and the county, Wasatch County, is in the process of adopting. I think we should reach out to them, especially because it's a regional development issue. And we could also gain some insight rather than doing our own. They have probably a wealth of information already.
And it's worth noting that Daniel Mendoza is interested. I let him know that we were interested, given that Park City has an interest, Summit County, and he also mentioned Wasatch and Heber. I think they've actually maybe been in contact with the U as well. So that would be great if we could do kind of a regional analysis. He was going to look into that. That was part of it as well, is doing more than just Park City and us. So he said he'd try to let me know by the 23rd of this month, but I'll reach out to him tomorrow with regard to an earlier timeline for inventorying.
Yeah, I think they're also doing, I think I had mentioned that I was going to check with the town of Alta to see who they were using, because they're also doing an inventory. And sure enough, they're also using Daniel Mendoza.
There you go.
So they were doing it in the fall with a drone, and I think the drone failed. So then they have to redo it.
It did. I think it crashed, and they have to rebuild it. So he said they're working on that this spring.
Yeah.
One of the challenges with drones is we seem to be windy every afternoon, and maybe it dies down at night when they would do that survey. Hopefully we could find a quiet, calm night to run a drone here.
Yeah.
So Thomas, this is another red. You added commercial here, which is good.
It just, we had non-residential and multifamily. I just wanted to be more clear that it's, that the intention there is commercial. So I recommend commercial. Then I think the last part was the fine, and Polly and I had discussed this, and she did some research. We had initially a 2,000 per day residential fine, and the most you can go is 1,000. So we revised that to 1,000. And I think the remainder stayed the same. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. So we're not voting on this from the standpoint of implementing it at this point in time. We have some homework to do, but I just want to confirm that everybody is okay with sending this out as a starting point so we can get it socialized across the community.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Mayor, how do you plan on getting it socialized? Just like post it on the website, or what's the plan?
We'll put it on the website, we'll do it in the mailing, we'll put it in the newsletter.
A mailing as well? Okay.
Yes, a mailing, an emailing mailing, but an emailing.
Oh, an emailing. Okay. Because I was thinking mailing costs money.
Right.
It does cost money, costs a lot of money.
Is a lot more cost effective.
All right, so I take it as a yes, even though I've only heard a couple of voices.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I think. I think, Thomas, thank you so much for making some changes and engaging Daniel Mendoza. Getting some of the questions we had in our committee answered. I think this is a great basic, a great initial dark sky ordinance, and I think it's time to get some input, and I'm hoping that in the near future we can get this in a condition so it can be adoptable.
I'm all in favor of dark sky ordinance, so I'm ready to move ahead with it.
Agreed. We just need to get it right and understand
Right.
what we're voting in, what the implications are.
Yeah, same here. Just get this information out to the people that, at the HOAs that need to potentially look at their situation. But I think if we get that, if we get either a county engineer or something like that, lighting person or this gentleman Mendoza to give us some readouts, then we know what we're doing. We get a baseline.
Yeah, I think
good work on that one.
Yeah, I don't think that the CPA is in any of the HOAs don't have the lighting experience to probably, know whether or not they're in or out of compliance. So.
Okay. All right, thank you. Item 4, I mentioned at the beginning, we are deferring to the next meeting because Polly has requested additional time to review the language. As soon as we get through that, which I want to be prior to the next meeting, we'll get that to you for review. So hopefully we can have the opportunity to move it forward in May. Item 5. This is sort of an update. So Thomas kind of tells us, if you would take us briefly through this.
Sure. So recently there were some discussions, some back and forth working with Deer Springs Phase 1, which is, I think, the first 44, 45 lots. The initial subdivision had been, the initial plat had been signed, and it indicated that nightly rentals were allowed. Their HOA CCNRs also allow for nightly rentals. And so when the amended subdivision came in for phase one, which is phase one and phase 1A, when that came in and expanded phase one from roughly 30 to, again, 40, 45 lots, Polly, in her review, along with Ryan, noted that plat note was in there, and we don't actually allow nightly rentals in the town. They're not an allowed use. What is not permitted in our zoning ordinance is not allowed, and those are not permitted. And so there was a negotiation with Nate, and because it had been signed with nightly rentals in place early on, the agreement was that the nightly rentals could be allowed in the first phase, 45 of the 248 units, but not anything beyond that. We worked with staff and recommended some plat notes that you can see there with regard to management of those nightly rentals. And that is likely how that will stand. But as a result of that discussion, we wanted to bring it back to council to make sure that we holistically as a community are still not wanting to permit nightly rentals in the residential zones. And so that's really where we are tonight. Again, right now, we do not allow nightly rentals so keep in mind, we redid the ordinance, but the zoning codes and the zoning districts, but all of the new language for potential annexation areas, future expansion of the community, those specifically reference short-term rentals, less than 30 days. And they're permitted in the commercial district, but not in the remaining district. So we've kept that recommendation and clarified that recommendation in the new ordinance. But the existing ordinance that you see, which covers all of the land within the town right now, it doesn't really address it other than to say that, again, if it's not a permitted use, if it's not specifically permitted, it is a denied use. So the question really is, are we comfortable, one, with that remaining in our policy? And then two, do we want to be more explicit in the code and put language in there that specifically prohibits it? We do have one existing zoning district, the hospitality casita, that does allow for it, but we don't have any land actually zoned hospitality casita.
And our new title prevents rezoning to any of those old zones as well. So the hospital or hospitality casita is one of the zones that can't be used going forward.
Correct. And then
in annexations or rezones.
That's correct. And so the bottom list you see is the new list of zoning districts, and the only one that allows short-term rentals, which can tie into a condotel, a hotel, et cetera, and or an Airbnb, is in the commercial zone.
So neighborhood mixed use, I thought we allowed it there as well, but you'd have to correct me if I'm.
I didn't. It wasn't listed in there.
Okay.
I think we might have pulled it out because of the proximity of that to residential units, and there could be lack of management issues. I'm guessing. I can't remember. I thought we had it in there as well, but then I didn't see it in the new code.
So, as you all remember, the master HOA, which covers a good portion of the town, does not allow nightly rentals as part of their policy, and they occasionally remind us. They send reminders out from time to time about that, and they do spend some resources on policing it. They look for Airbnb and VRBO type listings with that address, with addresses inside the MDA area. So right now we're talking Deer Springs and Claim is what's in the town today. Claim has indicated a desire to do nightly rentals as well. And so we're going to have to deal with that at some point, because they're going to come forward saying that they were approved with that in mind. So we'll have to deal with that at some point. There are, if we do it right, which we're trying to do with what we've granted for Deer Springs so far, then it also provides a potential revenue stream to the town as well. So there is some potential benefit from having that. I believe the settlement, which is the property sitting behind me, is in the commercial zone in Hideout, and they certainly had every intention of, if it ever gets built, of using that for short-term rentals.
Yeah, it wouldn't have
That
been
would be
commercial
another
because
area.
commercial was a new zone we added, but I think you're right that however it was zoned prior, or however it's currently zoned,
It's actually, I'm pretty sure it's zone commercial, Jerry, even though, anyway, we'll sort that out later.
yeah, I mean, there was no commercial zone before we redid the titles.
And
I
maybe,
should also,
I think it was resort feature. No, that's not what it was. It doesn't, we don't need to get into it now, but
and just to
I
point
think it was
out,
neighborhood commercial.
my understanding
Sorry,
is
Paul.
that the areas that don't, that aren't part of the master HOA, where nightly rentals could occur without, well, there are two things. One is that the master HOA CCNRs can always change. The town wouldn't have control over that. So this would require that for the whole town. And the other thing is that the ones that are outside the HOA, are in MITA, we would still get some benefit from any tax revenue, but it would be reduced because MITA takes an administrative fee off of the amounts.
Hey, can I put something out there? I've never lived in a community where nightly rentals were a thing. I'm not sure Hideout, due to its distance from the ski resort, would have much appeal to nightly rentals. I don't know. I have no interest in renting my
Have
house.
a lot.
You
A
think
lot.
so?
there's a ton.
A lot.
Oh, yeah.
Ton.
Yep. This would be an
This-
awesome
this-
place.
I mean,
to-
This is super
So-
close. I mean, places we go skiing are off or even further away just because of cost purposes to rent Airbnbs so we can go skiing.
And we're much closer to the Jordanelle for summer activities as well. So
Yeah.
we're a year-round hotspot for nightly rentals if we allowed it.
So if we allow nightly rentals, this is a stupid question, but since I've never lived in a community where that was a thing, and I sure wouldn't want to live on Main Street because of the noise, what would be the downside? Would we be worried about houses getting trashed, crowds, parties, noise, things like that?
Yep. All of the above.
Yeah, that's the complaints at Park's Edge and Retreat at Jordanelle. They allow it and guaranteed, I know from folks over there, a lot of them aren't happy because it's, they're dealing with that noise.
And I know Parks Edge has the professionally managed clause as well. And, that doesn't, I mean, that mitigates that whoever is renting it isn't going to, the cleanliness and that kind of stuff. It helps with that, but it doesn't help with noise and parties and that kind of thing.
Go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, this is more of a policy thing, not so much a legal thing, but I have, over my career and even currently, have been looking very closely into short-term rentals. And a common complaint that I hear, especially in towns with a small year-round residents, as compared to second homeowners, is that short-term rentals tear up the fabric of the community. It encourages more rentals of people who are not there and that are kind of in and out. And so where I see Hideout with a pretty small percentage of full-time residents as compared to the number of homes, you may want to preserve as much as you have for, having someone, even if someone's a second home, even if your neighbor is a second homeowner, if it's the same person and you have an issue with them, or you still have a relationship with them, right? They come every summer, they come certain times of the year, they become more the community as opposed to short-term rentals, which is just a revolving door. So that's a common complaint that I've heard.
Yeah, I'd like to add that we have that new hotel that's built. That's nightly rentals. We've got, the unincorporated areas of Wasatch County that are controlled by their HOAs, and if their HOAs allow it, they have nightly rentals. I'm not sure what's happening over in the MIDA project area on the other side of the Jordanelle.
Nightly rentals.
Nightly rentals. I think there are plenty of nightly rentals in this area. What Polly just said really resonates with me. I do believe it would tear up the fabric of our community. And I think that's not the direction that we want to go in.
And I don't know how many people I've talked to who have either recently moved in or built homes, and to a person, they've all said, we like this. This is the kind of thing that we bought this second home. We feel more comfortable in that effect. So that was not a rigorous analysis, but at least that I have talked to a number of people who feel the same.
So a question that I would wonder, and I totally support what I've heard thus far, but I'm sitting here thinking, well, why does the developer, both for Claim and Deer Springs, why do they feel that that's a market advantage to be able to market it as saying allowing nightly rentals? So does it increase the market price of the property to be able to say it supports nightly rentals?
I think what it does, Jerry, is it takes somebody who is wondering whether they want to spend $800,000 on a home they're going to use 6 weeks a year, and moves it to a place where it says, okay, if I have income coming to support this, I want to do it for 10 years, and then I'll stop renting it because I'll have paid off my house or whatever, and now I can just keep it for myself.
Yeah, a solid nightly rental unit can actually be a moneymaker. It's a commercial income generator. Yeah.
So, I mean, that was all the places I've lived, or we've talked about, renting or not renting, and we've made the choices so far not to rent a home, but we were surrounded by people who were renting. My next door neighbor at the beach, constantly renting. And he came he was very diligent and came every week and made sure that the place was kept up and all the rest of it. And banned the people who caused the ruckuses. But that's how he paid for his beach house. So, that's what's driving, these are not inexpensive places to live. So I get their perspective as well.
So to Polly's point, if you allow nightly rentals, you're encouraging more part-time residents and the revolving door of the rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do we do about enforcement? I know you said that you monitor, websites, whatever, but I actually.
Well, we don't, Carol. I mean, we don't do that. The HOA does that for the main portion of town, but Hideout Municipal does not do that at this point in time because we haven't had that many units available. I mean, Claim's just getting started. Deer Springs hasn't got anybody living in it yet. So, we haven't felt the need to invest staff time in, looking up VRBOs or whatever. But I mean, that's a good question.
I mean, because
my next door neighbor.
Yeah.
My next door neighbor is, sorry, Carol, my next door neighbor, their kids come up and stay. So how do you ascertain that that's, it's not a nightly rental, but you'd be seeing a stranger going into a house. My friend who lives in Rustler, loans his place out to his best buddy who's a ski bum, and they stay there a fair bit when these guys are away and stuff like that. And that's, people, you can't prohibit people from letting people stay in their home, right? all we're prohibiting is getting paid for it, advertising it and getting paid for it.
Well,
Okay.
for short term, I mean, 90-day rental is no longer a short term rental. And, you know,
Right.
I've
No,
got
I
a
agree,
neighbor
but I'm
who,
just saying,
you know, rents their place
But-
out for the winter. So,
but people come in and out all the time.
Yeah.
In various
Right.
homes,
I
so
just happen to see
it's
people
hard.
below me coming in and out, you know, different cars, different sets of people coming in and out. So some of my people, some of the neighbors that live below me obviously are doing something, but it's not caused a problem. It's just a little bit more traffic and then you see the cleaners coming in, you know, so a service
That's a
comes
good
in.
sign too, right there. Although, I mean,
Yeah.
again, we have a cleaning person as well, even though we live there full time. So
Right.
can't.
So,
Just to be clear, nightly
I
rentals.
don't know.
or
Go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, just to be clear, nightly rentals and short-term rentals are defined as 30 days or less. So if someone rents their home out for 90 days in the wintertime, that's allowable.
yep.
it's okay. Yeah.
And
And that's allowable under the HOA too. The master HOA allows that too. So,
And that's fine. You know, that to me, that's a, you know, whole winter season resident. They're most likely going to make friends and feel like part of the community during that time.
so it sounds like we're, as a council, we're on the side of making the short-term or nightly rental prohibition more, as what's suggested here, a little more defined within our code.
Mhm.
That's
I have
what I'm
one
thinking.
nodding head from Carol.
Mhm.
Yeah, Chris as well.
Yeah,
Jerry.
everything he says makes sense. I just want to be sure that I'm assuming the rest of the community, our constituents, feel the same way. I had a few people shoot me some text messages during this, and I'm all in favor of preserving the community, as long as that's what everybody, you know, who lives here feels.
Well, again, I think this would be, to make this code change, I guess, this would be a public hearing type thing. So once we have new language, we'd have to put it out in front of the public and communicate it that this is what we're considering. So we would get public input on it, Bob.
And it takes it beyond a zoning conversation to a town-wide, you know, applicable town-wide. So if
Well,
the HOA says, you know, at some future point, the
exception.
HOA says, hey, we're going to allow nightly rentals, then our town code says, no, we're not going to allow nightly rentals.
Right, fair enough.
So
Okay,
who
so
are we
Thomas,
going
I
to
guess,
ask to, yeah.
so Thomas, I guess we're going to craft some language and along with Polly to test it for the legal part of the language, and then we'll bring it back for review here. And if you're satisfied with the language, then we'll have to have add it to the agenda and have a public hearing to make sure the community has a chance to give us feedback on it.
Okay, we'll do that. And Jerry, just for the record clarification, you're right. In neighborhood commercial in the new zones, it's a conditional use. It's not a permitted
Okay.
use. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay, thank you. That was very good dialogue. Nice summary, Thomas. Thank you. Okay, so the next topic, and I'm going to change the share in a second after I read this. This discussion and consideration of adopting a resolution amending the fee and rate schedule to account for the sewer rate increase from JSSD. So what happened is Jan can do a better job with this than I can, and I'll let her do that. But there are properties that are bonded, and that was the rate that we had based in our fee schedule, but there are now some properties that are not bonded. And so JSSD requires a higher amount of money for sewer. The water is covered, but the sewer process is different. And their rate goes up a couple $1,000 when you're dealing with that. And so,
Can you
if we
explain the
don't-
difference between bonded and unbonded in this context?
Yeah. Well, Jan can, right, Jan?
Sure. Well, as well as I understand it, water was prepaid. Mustang Development negotiated water in parcel 1 and parcel 2. And as I understand it, parcel 1 is above 224 and parcel 2 is below, or maybe I've reversed those. Regardless, there were 2 parcels and there were a certain.
248.
Yes, sorry.
248.
There were a certain number of units agreed to under that contract, and we got a bill from JSSD recently letting us know that we had used those and were above and beyond. So we're doing some reconciliation and passing on back to the developer monies that are owed outside of what was under the contract originally.
So the bond in this case refers to the contractual arrangement.
Correct.
And so this was our fee and rate schedule. These are impact fees that we were collecting. And now that we have moved beyond the first tranche of sewer connections, we need to, the JSSD rate has gone from 5,000 to 7,200. And so we need to pass that through.
Yeah, if these
All
are
the
all
rest of the
passed
table.
through.
There's no other change in the fee schedule except for this we're talking about tonight. And yeah, Jerry, these are basically when you come to build now, a subdivision, then you've got to pay these impact fees in order to be able to connect to the sewer system.
Yeah, in my mind, if these are passed through because of rate increases from the provider, this is a no-brainer because the town doesn't want to cover the difference cost. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I agree totally with what Jerry says.
Apparently, there is a slight change up here that I didn't notice the first time through. So there. So this is the section that describes if you so is this okay? So I'm sorry, Alicia. I'm assuming so. We have 2 things we're dealing with in here tonight, not just that fee. We're also dealing with the idea of having the deposit.
Yeah, if you keep scrolling up, there's a couple more changes. Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I missed them because I didn't see them highlighted.
So this was a really rough draft. I highlighted that because I knew that was wrong wording. I was hoping that Polly would have a chance to look at it before. And then scroll down just a little bit more. Should be right there. So see where it says, let's see.
Sewer impact fee, yeah.
Right there. And then
Yeah.
there's another one on the commercial side as well.
Okay. Got it. But this stuff in blue, is this changed or is already the same? I don't know why it's highlighted in blue.
No, those are just like grammar things that word underlines because.
Oh, too many spaces or whatever. Okay, so it's no change. So it's just, so we put it here and then we highlighted it down the table down below. It's still the same thing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what that highlight, I just noticed that in that bottom portion that I highlighted. But those with the red lines on the left, that's what I changed.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Thank you. So this one looks like the language we used when we just changed the water meters. So so this has to be changed to talk about this tonight, right? Because this language has to do with the installation of the water meters, which is what we changed last time.
Right.
So
I
this
think
has to be rewritten.
yeah,
It has
I
to
think
be rewritten.
and copied that because it was the last thing. And like I said, I don't think Polly's had a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah, I'm just glancing at it now. I can amend the resolution to just match exactly what's happening. I apologize. I was kind of out of pocket yesterday and a good part of today. And so I'm just seeing this kind of getting up to speed here. The concept is fine and we do it by resolution. As you know, we just changed it. So we should be amending that, the last resolution. That should be the,
Yeah, that's what this one is. This is the last one we changed here.
right. I'm gonna work on this right now. If you guys want to talk for a minute. And I will, this is just.
Well, we can come back to it and we'll just move to the mask mandate update
Perfect.
while you're doing some work. And then come back to it. Okay, so stop sharing. We'll go back to it. So the mask mandate update is not a document in support of it. It's a discussion item, but what I wanted to talk about is that the state of Utah has relaxed, or is about to relax its requirements for masks on the 10th of April, which is Saturday of this week. However, that does not mean, as we understand it based on Alicia's research and Polly's work as well, doesn't mean we have to go back to having an anchor location. And it doesn't mean if we deem that it still presents a hazard, because the virus is not gone by any means. And the rates of infection, in fact, are quite high right now with the new variants. And it does not mean that we have to open the town hall and let people randomly come in without appointments and no mask. So I am recommending to council that we continue the current process that we have, which is we'll continue to have electronic meetings, that meetings in town hall will be appointment only, and that masks would be required by anyone visiting town hall, even if you've been vaccinated, for the safety of the staff.
Yeah, I fully
Because again,
support
what I've
that.
read is just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can't carry the virus.
Yeah, Mayor, I would fully support that. We need to protect the town staff. And the pandemic isn't over despite the state of Utah, the legislature drawing that line in the sand arbitrarily of April 10th. So I think we continue what we've been doing.
May I speak to that for a minute?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm on meetings weekly with public health, and it's House Bill 294, and it terminates the emergency powers and the public health orders. So we're still trying to figure out practically how to deal with it. And as you suggested, most people are keeping with Zoom meetings, keeping with not doing public meetings, but where they are doing public meetings, it's not enforceable anymore for us to require masks. So it's engaging protesters. And so rather than trying to deal with the protesters, people are just being ready to switch to electronic meetings.
So yeah, thanks, Jen. Yeah, so several of our municipal colleagues in Wasatch, Heber, who have attempted to, even though the date hasn't even come yet, have attempted to have a space that would enable the public to attend. They have been disrupted by people who are anti-mask, anti-vax, anti-whatever. And so the general sense of these municipal partners is we're not going to even open the door for that anymore. It's just creates too much havoc.
So if there are meetings that are over 50 attendees, we can require masks. That's still enforceable, as is masks in school, and businesses can require masks.
Yeah, and also along those same lines, we can require, obviously we can go electronic with a determination that it's not safe to have everyone in the same room. And just for down the line, you can also make that determination mid-meeting. So if you start a meeting and then it gets to be unsafe, you can then switch the meeting to electronic. There's a weird provision that allows for that as well.
I'm not sure how you effectively do that without violating some other principle, because you basically have to kick everybody out and give them time to go get on electronically.
Yeah.
I understand the thought process, but
that's what the state legislature came up with. It's kind of a weird thing. The other thing is that there's no longer, even though you have to have that letter of determination, you don't, and you have to make it clear how people can get on without the anchor location. You're not going to have to read the letter each time. So.
okay. Well, that's an upgrade. That'll save 2.5 minutes for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's what we're recommending to council for consideration. Chris has already on record of saying she's supportive. Other council members' thoughts?
I think it's a good plan.
Go ahead, Bob.
No, I like this plan. Let's keep doing what we're doing with the electronic meetings.
Yeah, same here. The news I saw today was that we're respiking in certain places the variances. Why take the chance? Why get anyone ill or possibly dying for what? I mean, I think we've done a really good job of what we've done here. So my 2 cents.
I support it totally. Summit County did come out today with a statement saying that businesses, I don't know if we're considered a business and we're not in Summit County, but that we can continue with the mask mandate, or at least we could publish something saying that we totally support that people continue to wear masks, social distance, and all of that.
Yeah, we can publish our decision tonight, but we're not a business, Carol. We're not a private enterprise.
Right. We're public.
We're public space.
Right.
So,
okay.
But
so the way I
Sorry,
heard
Shay,
it,
go ahead.
there's 2 things that are being contemplated here. One is the continuation of electronic meetings. I'm fine with that because I don't think we're impinging on public access in that regard. And the second is how the day-to-day operations at town hall operate. So is that a fair separation of the concerns here that
Yep.
we're dealing with?
Yep.
And so, from a town hall perspective, I absolutely support the safety of the staff. Finding the balance to allow liberty while we're still allowing, protections for the town staff, I think is a line we need to find what the balance is. And, we're a municipality. We need to have things in place that still allow the public to interface with us in a safe way. And So in my mind, that's what I'm struggling with. And I think that the tack that we're taking is a balance on that. If we allow for options for, I guess what I'm concerned about is if someone is uncomfortable or has a medical reason for not wearing the mask, do we still allow them to interface with the town in an effective way?
Well, Jerry, that's a good question. We certainly do allow appointments. We have the ability to physically distance by having people stand outside the window, the roll-up window in town hall, and still, have a communication with Alicia or Carol, folks inside the zone. I think the only thing we'd have to do there is make sure that the what's now the finance office, for lack of better terminology, is aware that that's going on, and they don't come walking out into unprotected space unknowingly. And I think if we do that, then I think we can accommodate both people who feel strongly that they don't want to wear a mask. But I guess what we would do is have to, because we want to be appointment only, I think then we would just have to, tell them that we prefer, we're asking people to wear a mask for your appointment. Is that a problem for you? And if we hear that, then we can take the next steps that I just described.
I think that's an appropriate balance.
My opinion is if people can't for some reason or won't wear a mask, there are other ways to communicate with the town rather than being physically in the building with our staff.
I agree with you, Chris. For those things that can be handled through electronic means or phone call, if that's a provision to say, hey, if you're uncomfortable or cannot wear a mask, let's see how much of this we can get done electronically. But I think there are going to be cases when they are going to have to come up to town hall for whatever reason. And if we can provide a means for them to still do business with us in a safe way that keeps the staff safe, but also allows for that accommodation, I'm for that.
So, Polly, are we able to require masks inside the building?
Actually, you can, because it's your building. So you can, my understanding is that you can. So I heard today that the governor just issued an order requiring masks in all state facilities. So likewise, we should be able to do that on our own property.
That's what I would advocate, Jerry. If somebody can't or won't wear a mask inside the building, and for some reason can't communicate electronically over the phone, there's always the option of going outside and physically distancing outside. I would like to see a requirement that the public must wear masks inside the building. And then I would, I guess we could extend it to the staff who haven't been fully vaccinated, or actually all of them. Unless they're all fully vaccinated, then they should be wearing masks inside the building also.
So that raises to me a bit of if the staff who's been vaccinated don't need to wear a mask, but
if they've all been vaccinated, Jerry.
That fine. So now we have all the staff vaccinated and no one's wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. And if me, for example, if I go in and I'm fully vaccinated at that time, but I'm required to wear a mask, there's a disconnect there.
All right. Well, then we'll just say.
Well, Jerry, I'm going to push back, Jerry. There is the staff in the office is, if you will, a COVID pod.
Yep.
Of sorts, right? And you're not generally in that pod, so that becomes the challenge, right? So there are people who come to my house that I have been with for more than a year now, who we don't require to wear a mask, and there's people who come to my house that we do require to wear a mask.
Yeah, I guess what I'm suggesting is, Mayor, if there is a way to accommodate someone who, for whatever reason, can't or won't wear a mask and still needs to conduct business, do we want to say no, or do we want to provide an accommodation for them to still do business
Right.
with the town?
I think we have mechanisms like take it outside, especially for the next 6 months, because we're moving into a better season. Right? So
As long as we have some accommodation, then I'm fine with it.
Stay on the other side of the window. Those kinds of things can be done.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jerry.
But sitting down at the desk, in the visitor chair in front of Alicia is not one of them.
Totally agree. That's a inappropriate accommodation, but the social distance on the other side of the window, or, we go outside and stand, a distance apart to do it, then that's fine.
Okay. So again, there's no, I guess what we'll do is we'll put together, I've asked Alicia and Polly to work together to come up with some language that we'll have everybody available to use. We'll have it on the website. We'll have it as, I don't have to read it every time. We'll probably append it to each of the council packages and so forth. So we have a standard language that says the town of Hideout, considers this a risk and so forth. Same for the planning commission as well. Okay, thank you all for your input. Polly has modified the language for the resolution for the fee and rate schedule. So I'm going to put that up now, and so we can all look at that.
And
Jerry,
Jerry, you may
going
want to jump in too. I should have sent it to you as well. But since this is kind of coming from your explanation, so I tried to put it on paper.
Yep,
So
that
this
works
is the
for
new
me.
language.
Costs incurred. I like it.
In the first whereas, there's an extra 4, I think, for which the town of Hideout is responsible to pay for. Is that
That's extra. Thanks.
just grammar? Yeah, it looks good.
So which 4 do you want out?
Well, I'm just suggesting pay 4, the second after the word pay. Because you already have 4 which. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So this, again, the rest of it is unchanged as per the prior version with the old language. So if you're okay with this, then I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
The resolution to update the fee and rate schedule as discussed. Thank you, Jerry. A second?
I'll second, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Ralph?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jerry? Yeah, Jerry.
Yes.
Why not? Carol?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Thank you all. Appreciate that. And so that brings us, let me stop sharing and go back to the agenda. Because those are in different formats. So I'm going to go back to this, which I'm pretty sure is just the agenda. Hopefully you're seeing the agenda. So At this point, we have completed the agenda items for this evening in the public portion of the meeting. We have an update that we need to go to that has to do with pending or reasonably imminent litigation, personnel matters, and or sale acquisition of real property. And so I would need a motion to close the meeting, the public portion of the meeting, and move to executive session.
So
I'll
moved.
move.
So who was that motion? I'm sorry.
Me, Carol.
Carol, thank you, Carol. Two, second.
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So as we normally do, I'm going to end the meeting. It is 8:49. Let's come back at 8:55. Dial into the same Zoom that's at the top of this meeting, but I will have logged in instead of Alicia, so it'll come up as a separate meeting. So just come back to the same address.
Okay.
Okay.